We're back in the tackle room, and today we're talking about fishing a place where no one else fishes and where your PB could just be one cast away. That's right, I'm talking about fishing the slop, fishing the thick stuff in super skinny water, and why you shouldn't be afraid of it, but a place you should actively seek out and target. Stick around, you don't want to miss this one.
That was gone. No, that's a fish. I got him. Ooh, I got him. Oh, yeah. Come on, buddy. That's a good fish, too.
And here is this video's featured comment. Congratulations! If you would like to have a chance to have your comment featured in an upcoming video, all you've got to do is leave a comment. And now, on with the video. Welcome back to lowbrow fishing. And when most of us think about fishing thick vegetation in skinny water, we think of something like this, right? A punching rig. We've got a thick flipping hook on here. We've got some sort of creature bait and a heavy weight, usually 1 ounce or bigger. We've got, heavy braided line. We've got 50 to 80 pound test on a big beefy reel with a big beefy rod, 7/6, or longer, heavy power rod, something that's a broomstick or a flipping stick, right? You're thinking of making short casts, little pitches here and there into that thick cover, letting that weight sink down. And that's what most people think of when they're fishing vegetation. Conversely, you might also think about fishing a frog. Very similar, braid set up, fishing frog over the tops of those thick mats, and that's a great and excellent way of doing that. However, I'm going to tell you why there's so much more to fishing the thick vegetation, and you don't have to be afraid of it. You don't have to be a wizard at punching. You don't have to be a wizard at flipping or pitching a jig. You can do so many different things, and today we're going to focus on things that most anglers don't ever consider when it comes to fishing the skinny water, fishing that thick vegetation, and they're missing out on so many bites, because I'm here to tell you that is where the giants live. It does not matter what time of year, right? If you're in the southeast, if you're in the north, it does not matter. You find the skinny water that's got good thick cover, that's got fresh water access to it, like we talked about before, a stream or something that runs through there, anything like that, and I'm telling you that you're going to have big bass in the area. And when I'm flipping and pitching in that stuff, I'm always feeling like my PB is just the next cast away. And I'm never disappointed with the quality of fish that I'm catching out of these places. Rarely, if ever, am I catching dinks. On the big lake, whenever I'm flipping or punching those areas, that shallow water with the thick hydrilla, I'm averaging 2 pounds, 3 pounds. Those are normally the fish that I'm pulling out of there. So it's a place I want to target. Not just for the big fish. I also have it to myself because for whatever reason, other anglers simply refuse to fish that far north. They just won't. I watch them as they turn around in their boat time and time again. I used to think, oh, here comes somebody, I'm going to have to share the water. But now it's just like, well, I know they're going to turn around when they hit a certain spot. And every single time they do. So I always get the water to myself. It is virgin water. I never have to worry about pressure on that water other than what I put on it. And it's not like a lot of these boats can't get there, right? I mean, you guys have seen my little plastic boat. I can get in 4 or 5 inches of water with it, no problem. And some of these guys are in skiffs. Some of these guys are in kayaks, but they never fish that far north. So today we are going to take a look at some of the different ways that I fish the waters. And it's not just all about punching, and it's not just all about frogs. You will be surprised at the different ways you can catch fish in a place like that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. Now, first off, we're going to start with something that's fairly obvious, fairly simple, right? And that is the weightless fluke. You guys have seen me talk about this in the past couple of videos, but this is something that I've really been using a whole lot in those areas. I can fish it on a much lighter gear. This is just your regular standard combo, your do-it-all combo, that most anglers will have. This is a 7-to-1 gear ratio, It's just a regular average bait caster. I've got 12-pound fluorocarbon on it, and I've got a 7-foot medium power rod with a faster action tip. Nothing fancy. Most anglers have a setup like this. Brand names don't matter. This is the setup that most anglers are going to have, whether it's Abu Garcia, whether it's Luz, whether it's Shimano. It's a common theme. As a matter of fact, most of your anglers will have several of these exact setups because they are do-it-all and they have such a wide range of uses. So, this is what I'm starting with. This is a weightless fluke, and don't let the term weightless fool you. This thing will bomb a mile. And I am fishing fluorocarbon on this, and the reason why I'm fishing fluorocarbon on this instead of braid is because I want those longer casts. A lot of times when you're fishing that super skinny water and that thick vegetation, it is going to be crystal gin clear, what we call tap water. It looks like you can just see right through it, like it's barely even there. Not only can you see the bottom clearly, but you can see way off in the distance, whichever direction. So every time you're working your bait back to the boat, you can clearly see it working in the water. And 9 times out of 10, you'll be able to see a bass fly out of cover and inhale it. And it's like a very exciting moment. That's when you notice that the hook will get your heart racing. So we've talked about the weightless fluke, right? We know what it can do. And another presentation that works just as well as that weightless fluke is going to be a Texas rig worm or a stick bait, which is what I have here. A stick bait is so versatile. That's why they work so well in these situations. And you can put a weight on them or you can run them weightless. I did a little bit of both today and I had success with both. See, when you're running it weightless, that bait comes up and over that vegetation without a problem. You don't get any gunk on it, you don't get any garbage on it, so you get that clean hook every time. You don't have to worry about it. It's the opposite end of punching a mat, right? Running something completely weightless. And it is super effective. And I'm doing the exact same thing as I would be if I were punching. I'm looking for those openings. You look out and you see that hydrilla. You see that hydrilla extends in all directions and everywhere you go. And you think to yourself, where am I going to start? There's so much to work with here. Where am I going to start? Well, the first thing I do is I find which way the current's blowing. And I go all the way to that end and I let the current push me back down. And I try to stay over the deepest part of that main creek channel, so my boat is in the deepest part of the water. And then I'm making casts to either side, whether I'm making short flips, whether I'm making pitches, whether I'm making bomb casts. I'm looking for the same thing when I'm working that water. I'm looking for gaps and openings in that vegetation where I can get this bait to fall down nice and slow in there. Give it a couple of pops, and then yank it over into the next section. Let it work in that spot. Give it a couple of pops, and then yank it over in the next clump of hydrilla and work it all the way back to the boat, or as close as I can get to it. And that's how I'm working those types of presentations. And it is very, very effective. And again, it's not anything you have to worry about getting gummed up on your baits. I don't lose baits. I don't lose baits and I don't get anything hooked up unless, of course, there's like a log or something in there that I didn't see. And I've been known to hook set a log, but those are outliers. Whenever I'm throwing into that thick vegetation, usually that vegetation is the only thing that's there.
See, the thing you have to remember about bass is that they're going to go where it's more comfortable for them, where they feel more safe, where they feel like they have access to the things that they need, food first and foremost, oxygenated water, deep water access, those sorts of things, cover, structure. Those are going to be the kinds of places that these bass are going to be mainly looking for. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be deep water that they're going to set up in. That's all relative. It's going to be what's comfortable for them. So if those bass feel comfortable where they're at, that's where they're going to be, regardless of the depth. Now, a lot of times on the fisheries, you know, those fish will want to be deep. A large population will go deep. That's where they feel like they need to be. But that doesn't mean that they have to go that way, like it's some sort of migratory pattern. And I think a lot of people, they get that stuck in their head, that those bass have to go deep, you know, during the summertime, that's what they have to do. No, they're just trying to find a place to be comfortable. That was gone. No, that's a fish. I got him. Ooh, I got him. Oh, yeah. Come on, buddy. That's a good fish, too. That's a nice fish. That's a really good fish. Dadgummit. Come on. Ow, son of a gun. He poked me. You poked me. Why would you want to do that? Come on. All right. There we go. Oh. Oh, he's got to be close to 2. You've got to be close to 2 pounds. Pound and 3/4. Beautiful fish. All right. That fish is 1.7. We'll go ahead and get a release on him. We sure do appreciate it. Thank you, buddy. Have a good one.
But what about other ways? What if we want to work a little bit faster? What if there are ways that we want to, run along the edges of that vegetation? Well, that's where something like this comes in. This obviously is a swim jig, and it's got rattles on it. This is a custom jig that I changed, I modified. This is actually a Strike King swim jig, and I put, it's got a little rage grub trailer on it that I've got rigged sideways, so it's more like how a bluegill tail flickers. It's something that I like to do. I'll be honest, I don't know if it makes a difference, but I feel like it does, and confidence is key in a lot of these situations. But this little guy right here, running it along those seams, running it along those edges, has caught me so many fish, right? You'll see a long stretch of hydrilla, and there won't be any breaks, in that edge, but you can treat it like a grass edge. You can throw your bait in there, and you can bring it through to you. And this is going to come through very, very cleanly. And again, this is a faster way of working, and it's gotten me quite a few bites working it in that situation. Or if I want to, in a pinch, I'll treat it like a jig. I see a spot that I want to flip. I'll flip it out there, give it a couple of yo-yos, bring it back to the boat. I've caught fish doing that. This thing right here, the swim jig, is the Swiss Army knife of your tackle box. It can do so many things, and it can do them well. If you're not used to using a swim jig, if you've never used them, I suggest you get acquainted with them. You won't regret it. But there are a couple more presentations that we can talk about today for fishing that really thick grass that you maybe never have considered before. And, well, it has to do with this and this, right? I mean, this is your standard swim bait. This is on a core tackle tush hook. Great little swim bait, but this is not something you would run through that thick vegetation, would you? This thing would get hung up and gummed up every single cast, and it would be nothing but a pain. You'd spend more time cleaning your hook off than you would catching fish. But what if we took this and we combined it with this? People who've been around the channel for a long time know exactly where I'm going with this. What the viewers of this channel took to calling the lowbrow rig. And all it is it is a swim jig that I've taken the skirt off, and we've got a swim bait on it. You can use a Kitech, you can use a Rage Swimmer, any boot tail type of swim bait will work. And this is your swim bait presentation. You can put this on your normal swim bait rod, your spinning rod, which is what I use, and you can work this pretty much like you would a normal swim bait. Pull it right through that thick vegetation. and it works. This gives you a viable and productive option to fish that swim bait through the thickest grass. And again, it's not exactly a swim jig because we're not treating it like a swim jig. We're not doing the Alabama shake, or we're not doing starts and stops and tugs and pulls and things like that. We're fishing it like a swim jig. A lot of times we're going to slow roll it, just nice and easy, steady retrieve, maybe stop it here, speed it up there. But for the most part, you're going to be fishing it like a swim bait. And this thing will get crushed. It will get hammered. And most importantly, it will stay clean. That hook will stay clean. So if you like to fish swim baits, if you like to fish a little bit faster, those are some ways that you can do that even in the thickest slop. Again, there's no reason for an angler not to be fishing the thick stuff. You'll have it to yourself. There's big fish out there, and there are so many ways to fish it. And probably, my absolute favorite way would be flipping a jig. Now, anybody who watches this channel knows that I am a jig fiend. And if you've never fished a jig, or if you're not good with jigs, it's not something that you have confidence in, I'm telling you, flipping a jig in flooded vegetation and around flooded vegetation will turn you into a believer. These things get inhaled, they get crushed. I caught my PB on a jig very similar to this. It was a 3/4 ounce flipping jig. This is a 3/8 ounce. This is a Guggen, I believe, and I just got a regular Pit Boss on here, Berkeley Pit Boss. This is what I had tied on today. It was doing work for me. But my PB, 13 pounds, 10 ounces, was caught flipping a jig into hydrilla. And I'm telling you what, it's an experience you never forget. My wrists hurt for days after fighting that fish. So there are some really big fish in that lake. And again, catching them flipping and pitching, catching them fishing the thick stuff. And that's why a jig is so crucial to that. This is another one. If you are not good with jigs, get acquainted with them. They will reward your patience. You will catch giants on these things. Consistently, over and over and over again, I'm catching big fish with jigs, flipping it around, flooded fresh. So, these are just some options you have. These are just some ways that you have. If you have access to this type of water, and there's always this type of water on any fishery that I've ever fished, there's always some type of water that's shallow and got thick vegetation. Seek it out. And most importantly, like we said before, a supply of fresh water, whether it's from a drain, whether it's from a ditch, does not matter. A creek that's flowing in, or an underground spring, something along those lines, something to keep that water fresh and keep it flowing and keep the oxygen fresh. Those fish will migrate to those areas, not only because it's cooler water and their food is there, but because they are less pressured. And those fish are always more apt to bite. I can get easier bites in those areas than I can any other part of the lake. And the best part is you don't need electronics. You can see the areas you want to target. You know that there's going to be a fish in that area. Now, it can be scary. It can seem like there's so much area that you need to cover. But you have to think about it this way. If you know what those fish are interested in, deep water access, oxygen, shade, and food, just put that together, right? Follow the current, let it flow, make your pitches, make your flips into places that look like they would hold a bass. It might not, or again, it might. And the better you get at it, the more you do it, the more you learn to refine your technique. And it does take a little bit, I guess, of a learning curve, but not nearly as much as most people think it does. So get out there in that shallow water. If it's more than waist deep, chances are you're fishing water that's too deep. So there you have it. That's why fishing the shallow, thickest slop is often your best bet when you head out to the lake, especially in the summertime when that fishing pressure is high and that water temperature is so hot. Find those places, and I guarantee not only will you catch a lot of fish, but you will catch giants. Don't be afraid to fish the thick slop. Thanks for watching Lowbrow Fishing. We'll catch you in the next one.